Good morning. Welcome to Substitute Tuesday. I'm Dorothy Lee, Family and Consumer Science Agent, University of Florida, IFAS, Escambia County Extension. Today we're going to talk a little bit about sugar substitutes. We've in the past covered some information regarding different types of sugars and how they can be used in baking. And so today we're going to focus more on those substitutes. Most of us like all types of sweets, cookies, candies, all types of pies, and even sugary drinks. But that's led to some problems with health. So therefore, that has led to the development of some different products that can be used as sugar alternatives or sugar substitutes in this case. So this morning we're going to cover a little bit of information about how we can take recipes for baking and use the sugar substitutes instead of having all those extra calories and so health problems with eating a lot of sugar in our diet. The sugar substitutes will fill in those places. So if you're kind of confused about sugar substitutes, you're not alone. A lot of people are confused about them. There are so many of them on the market now, and so many of them that are used in a different way because their substitute equivalents are quite different, that it is confusing. So let's take a few minutes and focus on some of the sugar substitutes and take a look at those. One that has been around for quite some time is the Sweet and Low. Now, Sweet and Low is 200 times sweeter than most of the what we call table sugar, which is white granulated sugar. Sometimes even the Sweet and Low, which is the saccharin, which is marketed under the term Sweet and Low, can even be as sweet as 700 times the table sugar. It is excellent for baking. You substitute only half of its sugar in the recipe. So if my recipe called for a cup of sugar, then I would use the equivalent of a half a cup of sugar with the Sweet and Low. Another sugar substitute that we're probably very familiar with is aspartame. And aspartame was one of the very first sugar substitutes on the market. It's marketed under the name NutraSweet, Equal, Sugar Twin, and so forth. NutraSweet was added to soft drinks in the very beginning of its marketing. It's 200 times sweeter than table sugar, and 1 teaspoon or 6 packets is equal to 1/4 of a cup of sugar in baking. Now, there's only one problem with this particular type of substitute. It is very heat sensitive, which means that it breaks down when it's subjected to heat. So it is not a really good substitute for baking cakes or pies or cookies. But, however, it can be added to pie fillings that are going to be heated, but it's added at the very end of that process of preparing that pie filling and then pouring it into a crust, into a non-bake crust type pie. That does work also there. And one that I think we all are familiar with is the Splenda. Splenda is made from sugar. There are 2 types on the market. There's the granulated, which comes in either the bulk or the package form. And then there's a wonderful product called baking blend. And Splenda is made from what we call sucralose, which is sugar, and it is equivalent to the same amount of measurement as our table sugar is. It is 1-to-1 ratio. In other words, if the recipe calls for 1 cup of sugar, then it's 1 cup of Splenda. It's about 600 to 650 times sweeter than sugar. It is a wonderful baking product. It adds browning and so forth to the product, which a lot of times is a problem when we're using some of the other products, is the fact that they don't brown as well, and that sugar's role in baking is to help it brown. That's one of its roles. And another product that we like is Stevia. Stevia is 200 times sweeter than sugar, and it's interesting, about 18 packets is equal to 1 cup of table sugar, or the powder is going to be 1/3 to 1/2 of a teaspoon. And it's also available in liquid, and the liquid is 1 teaspoon of the liquid. That would be your substitute there for that particular one. Okay, and I think if we think back from many years, saccharin was on the market, and maybe your mother or your grandmother put saccharin tablets in their iced tea and they dissolved and so forth. It was actually the forerunner of the Sweet and Low packet. So it's a little bit different. There's still some on the market today, but we don't want to use it, of course, in baking and so forth. Now let's talk a little bit about in baking, about browning and so forth, and in other types of substitutes that we can use to help with the browning process of baked foods. In certain recipes, we may want to use brown sugar, and there are also some alternatives that we can use for brown sugar. And one, of course, is the Splenda brown sugar blend, which is an excellent way to add a little bit of that extra caramel to your baking, and it does help a little bit there in cutting back on all the different calories and most of the sugars that we have. And an interesting one is agave nectar, and agave nectar is used oftentimes as an artificial sweetener in various types of food products, but it is really great in using it for a browning agent. When you're using it in browning, maybe you want to add a little bit of brown to your product and so forth. So 2/3 cup of agave is equal to 1 cup of sugar. The only thing is you need to reduce the liquid usually when you're working with this type of product, and also reduce the oven temperature about 25 degrees because of the browning, and that's what we want to achieve. We want to achieve that wonderful brown crust to our baked products, and we don't want to overbake. But this particular agave does lend that particular properties to it. Agave is a very interesting product because it's made from a plant that we also make tequila from. So I think that's an interesting fact there, but this is very, very sweet, and it does add wonderful browning properties to baked goods, and you only need to use a small amount. One final product that is an artificial or a substitute for flavoring is vanilla sugar. And vanilla sugar can be sprinkled on or added to different baked products too. Oftentimes vanilla sugar adds just that extra flavor of vanilla along with that sweet flavor to your baked products. These substitutes are just a guide. By adding more or less sweeteners to your recipes, they can help you tailor them to your own preference. Experimentation is the key. For more information, contact University of Florida IFAS Extension Service, Escambia County.